Being president of the Hispanic Latino Association is something that I am very proud of. It's not something that I ever saw myself becoming entering the University of Alabama. Coming from Texas, I never had to really explain my identity. And so whenever I came to campus and I couldn't really identify where my people were, it was really just the push that I needed to get our name out there. My name is Carina Villarreal. I am a graduate student at the University of Alabama, graduating in May 2022. I came to the University of Alabama to study public relations. It's something that I'm really passionate about. I love connecting with people. As I got further along into my educational career, I realized that I was missing something, and social work was that thing. Something that I always advise students that are coming in is that if you graduate the same person that you were as you entered, you did something wrong. Social work really gives me that avenue to connect with people on a deeper level and understand the whys behind something and how we can fix it. When I think of Dr. King and his legacy, one of his last sermons, he said, "Something is happening in Memphis and something is happening in the world." So that really connects with me, because no matter where we are as students or whenever we graduate, there will always be something happening in our community, and there will always be something happening in our world. All it takes is for us to tap into what we're passionate about and apply it to a cause that we're passionate about. When most people hear about upkeeping King's legacy or how do we keep his dream alive, I think that's a very lofty goal. For some people, it can be very intimidating. When talking to students and they say, I don't know how to make a change. This is happening on campus and I'm not sure how to address it. It's really about the small changes in your classes, having those conversations, encouraging diversity of thought. That's what makes the bigger changes on campus and creates a cultural shift. We need to have a united front whenever we're challenging big issues. If it's only one side that is pulling for one issue, it's most likely not going to get resolved. When people today think of progress, they immediately want to look to the younger generations, which I think is important, and we need every voice matters. But when we look at the larger grand scale, I think that we also need to look to our older voices and understand what went wrong in their fight for equity and inclusion so we don't repeat the same mistakes. If we're able to truly understand people, it's about also understanding that history and what's made them to be who they are today. And that applies to whole populations.
Dr. King wanted equality and equal opportunity, and that is really meaningful to me because I think everyone has a right to become successful. My name is Nahree. I'm a psychologist and associate director of clinical and outreach services at the counseling center. I'm originally from South Korea, and I have always been interested in the life of marginalized people, and I was interested in their stories and question what I can do to help them. And then I came to America, and then I actually become minority, and that was quite a shift. I become more interested in how that kind of social injustice affect people's mental health. Because I'm a psychologist, I'm also interested in people's psychological issues, how culture and society and system affect people's mental health. Because a lot of times psychologists assume that people's psychological issue is individual issues. But from my observation, it was not always individual issue. It's a reflection of social issues. But then pandemic really affected minority population. And that actually gives me more chance to actually work with the diverse DEI office and creating workshop series and that kind of stuff. I mean, I really appreciate having that kind of opportunities. Dr. King's comment about our need to question, like, what can we do for others? I mean, that really hit my core. I started to work at the counseling center, and that experience actually gives me a real chance to work with the students and help them to realize their dream. I have a lot of students coming to counseling center. Actually, they are marginalized in many different ways. I mean, it could be like the gender and sexual orientation or class. Having that kind of chance to help that students is really meaningful to me, and that's like my way over also connecting social justice with counseling. Talking about racial issues is quite sensitive issues. It's gonna also make a lot of people uncomfortable. So it requires some courage, but I told myself that I will never be silent. I'm gonna just put up with any discomfort, and I'm gonna speak up.
I suppose that the most important event that shaped my life took place when I was 13 years old in the summer of 1956. My younger brother Joe and our friend Anthony and I were walking from the little village where we lived, Westfield. A police car pulled over in front of us. One of the two white policemen pointed his finger at one of us and said, "Nigger, get in the car." Well, the fickle finger of fate was pointed at Anthony. And so Anthony got in the car. They drove off, and Anthony later related that they took him up the road, drove into a side road, made him get out of the car. One of them put a pistol to his head and told him to urinate on himself. Those circumstances led me that hot summer day to decide to become a lawyer to fight those kinds of atrocities. And I have kind of lived up to that ambition ever since that time. Martin King came to town in April of 1963. We, the students of Miles College, were actively involved in his campaign. We marched. I was assigned to go down to Pizit's department store, which was in the largest department store in Alabama, and take a drink of water from a white fountain. And I did. And they called them floor walkers then. The security guard, white security guard, came up, put a gun in my back, and marched me out of the store. I was very impressed by Martin King. His ability to say in words the thoughts that were so dear to our heart impressed me greatly. I have been deeply influenced by him throughout my life. Dr. King's dream has been partially realized because after the enactment of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act, blacks were elected from the county courthouse to the Congress of the United States. But most of all, we've seen the election of a black president. In that sense, the broad contours of Martin Luther King's dream has been achieved. My appointment as Alabama's first black federal judge was all part of that dream. But the dream is still endangered because there has been a re-emergence of the forces of racism, the same kind of attitude that led to the Civil War. And so to that extent, the dream has not been realized. And what that means is that those of us who believe in it have to keep working just as hard as we ever did to try to achieve that dream.